Oh, I'm live. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Can I be heard? Can I be heard? Hmm. Huh. Hmm. Okay. I'm just gonna chill out here for a bit. Woo. Okay. What's good? What's good? What's good? Hello to that one viewer. I'm just chilling out here. We had a postponed John Zerzan interview into like a little bit later into the night for me personally. But I'm just chilling out here and waiting for that. Um, yeah, I thought why not go live? I haven't went live in years, so you know. If you guys have questions about the CTMU or something, well, there's nobody in here right now. Wow, I'm irrelevant. Jesus Christ, I must be. This is exactly why I need to put out more content, man. Because it's fucking embarrassing. It is embarrassing right now. The just the lack of an amount of people here. You know, um, uh, uh, just checking, just checking. It's like literally the guy sitting in the middle of the fucking chairs. It's like there's nobody in there. Hi, man, missing no. How you doing, bro? Um, hey guys, what's up? The and missing no. These are the real. We can't say the N word. The real people. The real dudes. How are you guys doing? Yeah, I. What's up, man? I'm Shaq. I was gonna do an interview with John Zerzan. We had to postpone it a little bit later into the day because of some technical difficulties. So I thought, why not just go live, see what everybody's out and about doing, and yeah, I haven't went live in years. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, any things you want to throw my way, any any shit talking you want to do, just get it done. Let's go. Oh. Interesting stuff. Um, you can tell I was preparing myself. I'm in the fancy shit. I'm doing the you know I'm doing the pseudo intellectual outfit. But yeah, I don't know if you guys know who he is. I don't know if you guys know who John Zarzan is. He's kind of a niche guy, but he's a philosopher. He's a political philosopher, an anarchist type, anarchist primitivist. And so I was going to interview him about those ideas and see the I guess we were gonna go about it in a more metaphysical way. We were gonna go about it in a more, kind of spurgy, just the type of shit that I do. Where, what's the meta ethics behind this? What is the metaphysics behind this? How could we justify this? Um, and yeah, I did a video on Ted Kaczynski a while back when I was researching him. I saw this documentary, the Unabomber in his own words and all of that. And I saw John in that documentary, and I did a little bit more research into him, and I was like, wow, this guy's story is interesting, and maybe you should do an interview with him. And so that's kind of how it came about. Um, whoa. I'm a little bit conflicted on the direction that my audience is kind of going in, because if you guys don't know, this channel kind of started off as like a music playlist channel. And typically, those doomer kind of playlists bring about or harbor people of various different political dispositions, usually into that kind of Wojak meme culture type of shit. And so, with the new influx of CTMU viewers, I'm kind of very conflicted about who really is my audience. But the guys in the chat, the guys in the Discord server, you guys know what's up. I know about you guys, and yeah. I'm gonna be doing a lot more videos on the CTMU. I'm gonna. I don't know if I've said this before on the channel. I probably haven't, but if you're in the Discord server, you'd know. I'm going to, in the next month or two, in the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to refurnish and, reestablish a new CTMU community. I'm indeed going to do that, right? Because the last one kind of was like it was flimsy. It wasn't very rigid and consistent and sophisticated in its, you know, in the structure. It was kind of all over the place. We didn't really hold consistent meetings, and there wasn't a lot of contributions being made from the top people. So I want to change that, and when I do, and I will, is going to be great. It's going to be containing all the information that you need to know about the CTMU to the very last minute details that other people might miss just from the get-go. And I'm going to try to harbor analysis from other people. I'm going to ask for help on the courses from other people. I'm not just going to do it all myself. And we could probably get Chris Langan and Gina Langan in there as well, like we did the last time with the Compatriots Academy. And yeah, we're going to make it probably cheaper as well, right? Last time it was like $20 or something, and or on the Compatriots Academy side, it was even more. It was like $200 a course or something, which is insane, right? So we're gonna do big changes. I'm gonna do a full CTMU guide, complete CTMU guide with animations, explanations, and detailed guides all the way through. It's gonna be like a documentary style video, essentially, probably ranging into the 4 or 5 hour mark. Containing all the principles in the CTMU and their explanations, the SCSPL, the grammar of the metaformal, the grammar of the metaformal system, syntax, just all the mathematical, logical representations of the arguments and stuff. And we're going to get down to the very specifics. And so hopefully that will go viral and harbor a little bit more attention that way. And you guys will get the CTMU content that you've been yearning for, because I've been very inconsistent and lacking in that. Kind of have been chained to the obligations of school and university applications. So that's what's been going on. And I don't know what you guys feel about those. Yeah, I don't know what you guys feel about those politics videos, because I'm getting some mixed reactions on them. I did one with the one with Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes interview a couple of months back. That got banned. It got blocked by Candace Owens herself, and then it got reestablished after she didn't, provide actual reasoning behind the reason that she took it out. And the last one that I put out about Nick Fuentes and Ben Shapiro, the second episode of the Telex show, apparently that did very well. Did well above average for the amount of views that I usually get within a day. And so I don't know how you guys feel about the politics side of it, because I believe personally, I think it is essential. I think it is really imperative, if we want to promulgate the CTMU into the more mainstream area, that we need to actually implant it or make it interact with the means by which people actually get introduced into philosophy. Because the CTMU is a philosophical theory, right? It is necessarily a philosophical theory. And people usually start thinking about the philosophy and the deeper aspects of it when they actually get introduced to higher levels of thinking and of why people should do the things that they do, of, or what should we do usually in society, not just in their lives. And that's kind of their political dispositions. They may be a conservative or a leftist, and they start actually pondering and they start engaging in debates, and people start asking them for justifications, and they realize that, hey, I don't really have many justifications. And so if they're actually intellectually honest, they refer back to what? They refer back to philosophy. They start thinking about ethics and morality, and they get introduced into these basic ideas. They get introduced into these philosophers. And so what we want to do, really, what my mission is to kind of foster this relationship that I have with these content creators, these political commentators and stuff like that, and my awareness and familiarity with them, and actually bring the CTMU about into the kind of mainstream stratosphere in which these people talk about philosophy. And that way we can actually get a solid base of people that are really interested in finding truth. So that's kind of been the motivation behind all those politics videos. And yeah, I think you guys will like it. I mean, if you enjoy the debates, if you enjoy these conversations that I have, I think you'll enjoy the analysis as well. And we're going to be doing stuff with the CTMU radio channel as well. A lot of work, a lot of interactions with that. And yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot more of me soon. I just always wonder how the people that were like, hey man, I subscribe to this channel for I subscribe to this channel for my fucking Doomer music playlist. Where are they, bro? What are you doing to my playlists? And it's like, I'm just wondering how the majority of people here feel about, this new kind of content direction. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're gonna do great things. And we got that one solid viewer in here. Missing nose a G. Amshag G. The G. Works well. Yeah, I'm gonna hang around here for a while longer until we can get that interview straightened out. Hopefully, I'm gonna get that out and about by Thursday for you guys. I live in a shithole, so the time zone is going to be a little different. It's going to be out around evening, the video or the interview with John Zerzan that I will have, and we'll see kind of the reception to that. Yeah. Missing no. Have I? Are you in the Discord? Have I interacted with you in the Discord? I don't know if you're in the Discord or not, because usually people that are hyper interactive with my channel, they're in the Discord. But yeah, I appreciate you staying in here, man. That's who I do it for. Oh, you're a lurker. That's okay. Yeah, we have a lot of lurkers in there. A lot of lurkers, and some people that are, a lot of people kind of mask their true identities to, lurking in chat, and then they start having these conversations that are like, leading. They ask these leading questions, or they just troll and shit. We've had a lot of trolls in there, so the lurk is fine. Lurkers, we appreciate the lurkers. The community wouldn't be what it is without the lurkers. We need those. We need those guys. Yeah. It's kind of been interesting, the whole intensification of people into Christianity. And I'm not a Christian. I say that quite often. I literally have one of the most contentious debates I think I've ever seen somebody have with Jay Dyer. I'm not a Christian, but it's been really interesting to see the intensification of this kind of like hyper Christian nationalist disposition on the political right, and just amongst the youth in general. And I think that's a big part in what's been leading people into the CTMU community as well, because I mean they get introduced to concepts like high IQ and people the concepts of IQ and its implications racially or politically and societally, just in general, really. And they start looking up the highest IQ people and shit like that. And they get introduced with somebody like Chris Lang, and they're like, oh shit, he has like the highest IQ in the world, or one of the highest IQs in the world, and he believes all this stuff. He believes in God, he believes in Jesus, and all that stuff. And so, yeah, most of my interactions with people in this community have been, people that are Christians in the CTME community. So it's been really interesting to see that. Really interesting to see all the new generation kids being I don't know why I say that like I'm fucking a millennial, but becoming all hyper nationalistic and shit. And we aim to kind of not take advantage. I mean, that would imply like a malicious intent, but salvage that into pointing them in the correct direction, and philosophically at least. And so you know I aim to do a lot of debates. I'm probably gonna have I'm gonna try to get formscapes on, well, not for a debate, for an interview, but I'm gonna be doing a lot of content, including debates. And I already have recorded a lot of debates, which I haven't published yet. I'm just trying to do like a content unload, content kind of unload in like a very short period of time. So everything just kind of maximizes and blows up. I've had several debates that I haven't published yet. I have a very huge video that I did like a couple of months ago on, Veritas at Caritas. I don't know if you guys saw the debate with him. And I kind of just started feeling bad. I kind of just started feeling bad about making a video that long. I started feeling bad for like I'm responding to this guy in kind of a way that is mocking him because he said a lot of things about me. He said a lot of things about my video, and so did a lot of people in his audience. But after that debate with him, I honestly started feeling bad, really, because it went so horrible for him. I don't even know why he would say yes to it, but I was just hoping to God that he would. He was talking about things regarding IQ. He was like, "Well, how can Chris Langan have a high IQ when the test that he did, the WAIS 3, he scored above the ceiling?" And it's like, my guy, do you like what planet are you existing on? And so we have this conversation, we have this kind of a discussion, it turns into a debate. It's just, reasonably the direction that it goes to because we're on differing parts of a position. And so it just reveals to me that not only does this guy not understand like IQ ceilings, like, okay, maybe that's a fluke. Maybe he's like very well researched in this regard and he knows what he's talking about, but he just like misspoke, or, he had like a brain fart or something. But no. Like this guy is actually a fucking clueless person. I'm trying to restrain myself here, but like obviously this guy is not a thoughtful, well-informed person because he does not even know what intelligence is. He was like, intelligence is knowledge that you gain over time. He was like, intelligence changes over time because you consume more knowledge and you start understanding more things. You start gaining knowledge about more things. And it's like, man, I don't think we can even have this conversation if you're just that far behind. Like, not only can you not tell me that Chris Langan doesn't have a high IQ, you won't be able to tell anybody what IQ even means. If you think intelligence is when you learn stuff, really, that's what intelligence is when you learn stuff. And you learn more and more stuff as you grow older, so your intelligence changes over time. I mean, like, this is just insanity. I mean, these are the people that we're dealing with here. Anytime you see somebody, pop up on your For You page and you search up Chris Langan and you see one of these hit pieces, just realize that they're completely fucking clueless. They're just like this guy. When you see these videos with these big numbers and you think it must mean that, they're a big, great debunk and, the duration of the video was long, so they must know what they're talking about. Just remember that it's filled with people that don't even know what intelligence is. That it's filled with people that think intelligence is the amount of stuff you learn over time. right? Like not understanding the delineation between crystallization, like the crystallization of information in somebody's mind, and what we refer to as crystallized intelligence, and not delineating that between fluid intelligence, like actual intelligence, what your IQ is being measured for. I mean, that's like at that point, are you even serious? Like, is the whole video a joke? Is this like a meme? Is that what you're doing? It's like just fishing for just how much more attention you can get from this kind of side of the internet, um, so you can become a lol cow or something, or just rage bait. Like literally, that's all it is, just rage bait. So I found that particularly funny, and I mean, it's kind of like a reoccurring theme with any person that's like an anti-CTMUist. I talk about this all the time. I made 1,000 videos on them, but it's not even somebody like that, because usually the disposition is, somebody that's like a leftist. We know them, they're left leaning, they're, ideologically sensitive and soft, they're progressive. And so they don't like Chris Lang, and they have kind of like a hate boner for him because, he's outside of academia, and he's, more conservative and Christian, and says proudly, yes, God exists and we can prove it. And so they kind of have like an immediate and intuitive repulsive feeling towards that. It's not even only these types. It's people like the Jay Dyerites. It's people like Jay Dyer. I mean, you guys saw my debate with him where he had like a complete autism attack, and he kicked me out of the call because he was getting destroyed. And the reason that he was getting destroyed isn't because I'm just like a good debater. No. The reason he was getting destroyed is because he has no clue what it is, and he's trying to fight against it. He has no clue what it is, and he's like throwing out arguments, and this is kind of what Tag presumes. It's like, well, the CTMU can't possibly be the case. Yeah, and he, with that, he kind of just destroyed his own argument. I was like, well, why can't the CTMU be the predicate for metaphysical justification or epistemological justification? And he was like, well, he said a bunch of things that just didn't refer to the CTMU at all. But really, the justification for him is it's like, Orthodox Christianity can't possibly be not true. Therefore, the CTMU must be false, when he doesn't even know what the CTMU is. And that's kind of just like the whole house of cards crumbling on him in that debate. What kind of ultimate goal do you think the CTMU predicts regarding worthwhile secondary tellers? The ultimate goal for them, well, I mean, that's ultimately going to be referential to the primary teller. So we have to ask ourselves, well, what is the goal of the primary teller? And again, the primary teller, being God, is, his goal is self-identification. We talk about this all the time. It's the self-identification of his identity, his extension throughout, throughout secondary and tertiary tellers, identifying him passively or actively for human beings that have the capacity for cognition, it being active, right? And so our goal is to maximize his identity, maximize the image in which we are created. And we do that not just through like, oh, well, God wants to exist, so we with more existence. Well, it's like, what does that actually mean? And to that extent, we have to think about it very. This is where science does come in to help us. It's like, well, what does self-identification look like in our practical paradigm as human beings in our day-to-day lives? Okay. Well, what the self-identification looks like. The first and most important part of it is the axiom is self-identification, which means the promulgation of existence. Okay, identifying things, identifying existence. And so to the human extent, what does that mean? Well, we see that in our biological function. We see what it means in our biological function. We say that it means reproduction. It means life. It means bringing about human life. And so, insofar as that is concerned, well, why are we bringing about human life? Again, well, we have to go back. What is the goal of the primary teller? Well, the goal of the primary teller is self-identification of God. So our self-identification, creating more people, giving birth to children, things like this, so that we can actually maximize human existence, is all surrounding what? A greater understanding of God, a greater understanding of God and his nature, which we do through philosophy, and we do through an understanding of even our empirical reality, which is why we don't neglect science. We don't omit it from the implications of our theory. We just say that, hey, it's not primary. It is not the foundation for our view of reality. So, yeah, that's what is going to predict. And for worthwhile secondary tellers, that's another part of your question. For worthwhile secondary tellers, it's going to be heaven. That's always been the view. You're going to be incarnated in heaven. Yeah, essentially. That's why we kind of. That's why a lot of the CTMUs and Chris Langham himself, especially, is a Christian because it does interpret theology quite well insofar as the metaphysics of existence and reality is concerned. Because if we have redistribution, we have this idea of an objective morality, and we say, well, self-identification equals moral. The lack of self-identification or its negation therein is considered immoral. Well, we reward this and we don't reward that. Okay, this not rewarding it, right? The negation of self-identification, well, this would be equivalent to hell, where your identity is staunchly removed from reality, wherein God takes you out of his panentheistic structure because he does not want to associate with you anymore. However, for worthwhile secondary telors, and worthwhile is kind of like a loaded term. Not that it's like intentionally loaded, but it's just like it carries a lot more stuff. Like worthwhile, are we talking about somebody who's like, he believes in God, but he sins. He believes in God, but he does immoral things, and sometimes he's a bad person, and sometimes he tries. Or like somebody who just accepts God, but is like the bare minimum of like a functioning human being, or somebody that is like a pillar of a community, or somebody that is like a pillar example of what it means to be a good human being, right? And these two people can differentiate from one another, but God is going to select people that are worthwhile secondary telors for maximization of self-identification, for creation of more reality, and that what that would look like is heaven. Okay, and so yeah. So that's for that. So what exactly happens to those destined for nirvana? Is that different from being rendered down to UBT? Well, UBT is unbound telesis. Okay, unbound telesis is just the primordial realm of any informational content of. So we have potential, right? And this is kind of in the Aristotelian sense. We have potential, and there it is either actualized or non-actualized potential. So UBT would just be the encompassing of all non-actualized potential prior to any actualized potential. That's what UBT would be. So I don't think that would be they would be rendered down to UBT, right? Because in order for them to be rendered at all, they would have to be delineated or actualized in some kind of a way, or their existence needs to be identified. If they're being rendered, it means that there's a transition going on from their non-terminal identity. It must mean that it's some kind of an identity, right? So I don't think that they would be rendered down to UBT. Those destined for nirvana, I don't exactly know what you mean by that. If you could clarify that, that'd be great. I don't think a human being, because human beings are not really perfect. Okay, I don't think we can, at least within this lifetime, achieve that. Right. We got four people in there. Because if you really think about it, nirvana would essentially be like, it's like an unaltered state of transcendent existence. Okay, and if you really think about it, like my understanding of it, which is like I'm not an expert on nirvana, what it is, so that's why I'm not answering the question to my best ability. But it's like, wouldn't that kind of just be like what God feels, or what God is essentially in his state being? He's kind of in nirvana, and I think all that we can do is try our best to maximize our identity in his image, and so that could lead you to being a worthwhile teller, and reasonably being promoted in your eyes of God into what we would call heaven, and not in this kind of like very superficial and surface level understanding what heaven is. It's like the pearly gates open and you're fucking and you're right there. The pearly gates are open and God is like, get in here, bro. Right? We're gonna give you 72 virgins or something. I don't know. I don't think that's what's gonna happen. I think it's more so like the concept of reincarnation. Uh, Pure metaformal syntax without any semantic content. Langan describes nirvana as being made of pure metaformal syntax without any semantic content. Well, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Pure metaformal syntax. I mean, without any semantic content, that's kind of hard to conceptualize for me or visualize, because does that really mean that you have like an identity, or would your identity only exist as semantic delineation, from other potential possible uh, syntactic um, coupling, you know? So I think, yeah, I mean, if Langen has said that, then I'll defer to that. I mean, Langen says a lot of stuff, so I don't really keep up with all of his. Yeah, I don't keep up with all of his explanations for stuff. I just kind of read the CTMU and see and follow the logical implications of that. He has a video on this in the CTMU radio. Yeah, I'll check that out. I'll check that out, and definitely. And I think this is a very interesting video. I've written a lot of video ideas, and this has definitely been on that list of making a video about, well, what the afterlife looks like in the paradigm of the CTMU. That's definitely going to be something that I'm going to do a deep dive on with research and justification within the CTMU paradigm, and I'm going to do a full guide on that potentially in the future, in conjunction to the CTMU full guide. Really, my primary focus right now is that one CTMU, the complete guide to the CTMU video, which I'm going to be uploading within the next 3 to 4 weeks, because I have to do a lot of stuff. But that's my primary goal right now, and yeah. That's interesting, though. I never thought about it in that way, um, or consent or visualize it that way, at least. But that makes sense. I mean, that's interpretable within the system. Oh, this is a great question. I've read about this quite a bit. How do Gödel's incompleteness theorems relate to the CTMU? So essentially, the Gödel incompleteness theorem, well, the theorems, right? But the most popular one is the one that we're all familiar with, right? The idea that there's fundamentally a truth that necessarily cannot be justified. And while this is dealt with in the CTMU's paradigm, Chris Langen actually did a piece on this on a website. It's a bit niche, and I think it's out of date, but he did a long piece on how the CTMU relates to the Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And a lot of people have this expectation that the CTMU is kind of like a solution to the incompleteness theorem. But no. See, in the CTMU, we have the metaformal syntax, which, missing no, I'm sure you're aware of, because you just talked about the metaformal syntax. And we have the metaformal system. And so what that means is that if you have axioms that allow for themselves to be true, right, through the system that they would implicate. For example, if I have any axiom, right, if I have the axiom that the sky is blue, then all the inferences from this assumed axiom can be necessitated, and I can show it, right? Now, imagine if the proposition or the axiom therein, that we have the metaformal system, and the metaformal system has an immense self-simulating capacity, right? We all know that the metaformal system is, it's the manifestation of the SCSPL, it's the background and the justification or the foundation for the SCSPL. So it's infinitely generative. So you don't need the justification for axiom 1. You just need generativity, right, to keep it consistent, right? If you're assuming the metaformal system, and the metaformal system has infinite simulating capability, and then it justifies itself through generating more and more axioms. So the CTMU doesn't, solve Gödel's incompleteness. People conceive of it as kind of like a problem or something that the CTMU must deal with. If the CTMU is absolutely true, it's like, no, well, this is just coherentism, right? In epistemology, we have foundationalism, infinitism, coherentism, and the CTMU just, adopts coherentism. It's like, yeah, it is circular. It's absolutely circular, but there's no problem with it because it's completely logical. You know why it's logical? Because the SCSPL and the metaformal system allow for infinite generativity of axioms, based on the super tautology of the CTMU in the metaformal system. Langen claims that those who go to hell do not remain there forever, but that it feels like an eternity to them before they are recycled. How does he know, one, that it does not last forever, and two, that it feels like eternity? Well, this is an interesting question because I'm not exactly certain that Langen has said that, because I think I may have heard Langen say that, for example, if you're an atheist and you completely deny the existence of God, that um, you're going to be in hell for eternity. I think I've heard him say something like that. So I don't think I'll be able to answer that question well, because I'm not exactly sure if Langen has said that, because I recall something different. Um, yeah, because I mean, like, if we think about it logically, I mean, if your identity is completely separated from God. We have the panentheistic model. We all know that. We have God as the panentheistic model, and you as an identity, as a telor, right? You're contained within God's existence, right? And so when you're an atheist, or when you're like an incredibly immoral person, you are essentially, your telic identity is removed, such that you don't exist anymore, right? But I think the way that this question that you posited could be answered is that if we think of it as potential, all identities. Yeah. I don't really see the source of my chat. It just says here is the source, and then you have like a colon. But is it problem with the links? I think there may be like a problem with sending links in YouTube chat or something. YouTube is kind of annoying that way. But here's I was about to answer the question anyway. Here's how I think of it. I talk about potential, right? I talked about potential. Like, for example, when something exists, or an identity exists, or a telor exists, that must mean that there is the possibility of their existence. The unactualized potential that is necessary for the actualized potential to exist, right? Their metasyntactic coupling, right? Their identity in the non-terminal domain, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think if you're like an atheist, and you're like, your existence is vanquished from within the confines of God and ultimate reality, I think that just takes you back into is hell absolutely eternal? Yeah, I'm going to answer that after I answer the first question. I think that just takes you back into having the capacity to be potentially formed into an identity again, if that makes sense. You're going to be recycled as that which has the potential to possibly be recoupled into this identity that you once were, right? Which would take an eternity, because you heard God. That's the reason that you're not within the confines of what is considered reality. All of that, and only that which is real. There's a reason for that. And, when you sever that bond, it's really hard to get it back. And I think I may have heard Langen say that it's impossible to get it back. I'm not sure about that though. Excuse my ignorance there. Is hell absolutely eternal according to the CTMU? I don't think absolutely. I personally don't think so. This is the thing though. I could be wrong, because I haven't read everything that Langen has said about it. I'm not exactly sure as to what he's claimed, but I think from my understanding of the implications of what hell would look like within the confines of the CTMU, I believe that it would be the possibility for the syntactic coupling of that identity to be regenerated, but it would take a very long time, because then it would give God, God would have less reason to recouple that identity in the way that it would instantiate the person that was an immoral person, or was an atheist, for example, that kind of, acted against God. It would give him less incentive to do so, and therefore, it would take a long time for him to reconnect that severed bond with this potential syntactic coupling, or this potential syntactic coupling that instantiates this identity of a person. So, does that explanation make sense? Ludwig, does that explanation make sense? I just read. The point is that it lasts as long as it has to, in order to take out the trash. Okay, yeah. So does I think my explanation is consistent with that. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You have to get God's attention. You have to give God reason back, give God back reason for him to instantiate your identity in the way that it was, and to connect that bond again, because it's an important thing. Your bond to God is what is your bond to existence. Your relation to God Your relation to ultimate reality is the relation to your existence and your manifestation in this world. So if you sever that with your actions, and if you violate God's code, the code, if you violate the code, then he's less incentivized to engage with you. You are of no utility to his goal, which is self-identification. If my entire goal is for people to tell me and to recognize my existence, and then there's this motherfucker over here that's like, fuck you, you don't exist. And it's like, why would I deal with this guy? Okay. So he would have to do a lot to spend. That's not all. Obviously, this is kind of like a, funny analogy, but like it still holds. It's like, well, this guy would have to do a lot to, give me reason to actually acknowledge his consideration again, and his utility to me and my goals. So that's what that would look like. Brute fact. How does the CTMU refute the idea of brute fact that is often put forward by atheist metaphysicians? Well, I mean, that's kind of like, it's kind of like how do CTMUists, or for example, somebody that is a theist, or like, for example, would you ask an atheist, well, how do theists respond to the idea that theists think the burden of proof is on atheists for the existence of God? It's like, well, it's not. It's like it's their obligation to tell us, well, how is a brute fact something that makes sense, right? It's kind of their obligation. It's like, what even is a brute fact, right? Like, the burden of proof instantiates itself where the identification of a term, or the definition of a term and what it means, is not really coherent. Like, think of it. What is a brute fact? Okay, is a brute fact? You can think about it this way, in the way that a brute fact is something that is just necessarily unjustified. Well, then it's just illogical. Why? But if you think about brute fact as kind of like a tautology, well, within the purview of the CTMU, a tautology isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? We have a super tautology, right? It's just so long as the tautology brings about or has inferential implications that could justify the existence and the validity of the means by which the tautology is brought about, right? Which a brute fact usually used by atheists in their justification for their worldview doesn't. Because what's the implication of just saying, well, reality just is this? It's like, okay, what kind of system would that tautology, or would that brute fact bring about that would actually give validity to the instantiation of that claim? For us, we have the metaformal system. We have the STSBL, we have the CTMU, and all the principles that it contains that are necessary implications of the super tautology and its foundation. When we make fundamentally epistemic claims, or we make claims that are very fundamental to our understanding of reality, well, it implies by necessity, it generates the metaformal system and its syntax that is able to justify these ideas in this coherentist way. Okay? But what you're talking about for an atheist, brute fact, just foundationalism, okay? And you cannot really get anywhere with foundationalism, okay? It's fundamentally incoherent, okay? The refutation of the brute fact idea as put forward by atheist metaphysicians can just be, put forward by just asking them the question, what is a brute fact and why is it justified? And if it is justified, which you won't be able to demonstrate it, how would it tell us anything about the actual reality that we live in, right? What would be the implications of this? How would we know that the implications of this are correct? When you ask something like this of a CTMU, it's like, if you ask it of me, of Chris Langan, we just show you the metaformal system, right, and the implications of the super tautology and the CTMU, and it would just produce itself. I think this is something that is very imperative. I think people, in order to grasp the CTMU, need to, you don't need to have all the sophisticated and robust understandings of the logic and the metalogic and the metamathematics. You don't need to take it that hard. You need to kind of visualize what the arguments would look like, or necessarily would have to look like, in order for the CTMU worldview to be true, or in order for any worldview to be true. Okay? A worldview just means a set of propositions about reality. Okay? Now, whether these set of positions actually refer to reality, it would have to be the case that this system, if all the propositions within this worldview and within this system were correct, they would bring about exactly this world. Okay? And so that's what requires justification then. That's what requires logical justification and sometimes empirical justification. And so if your worldview is not able to do that fundamentally at the fundamental level, for example, when you ask somebody, how do you know X, right? If your answer to that is my worldview must necessarily be the case because if it wasn't this, it would be this, and it is this because we can tell so by X, Y, and Z, then you have a justification for the worldview. But atheists just can't have this because they're, most of the time, I mean, all the time, they're foundationalists. They're people like T-Jump. They're people like Destiny. They're people like these idiots that you see in these debates that actually have no idea or understanding of philosophy in any reasonable measure. So, that's what it is. The brute fact concept, insofar as it's being used as like a crutch, like, well, this just is, and I don't need to give you anything else. Yeah, it's bullshit. There's no justification for that. All you would have to do is, what is the justification for this, right? Logic is valid. What is the justification for this? Yeah. How does CTME prove the idea of logical monism? Sorry. Excuse me, I have a bit of some nose problems. How does CTME prove the idea of logical monism, that binary is inevitable? To CTME detractors who argue that there is no need to rely on binary logic, that other logic such as fuzzy logic. Oh yeah, so for example, when you're talking about fuzzy logic, you're referring to something like, paraconsistent logic. But for the system of paraconsistent logic to be possible, and I had a debate about this, I think a year ago or 2 years ago, actually, with a guy on Discord about paraconsistent logics and whether logic is fundamental to reality. And really, that's what logical monism would entail: that logic is fundamental to reality and the way that you can possibly conceive of reality. Fuzzy logics such as paraconsistent logic, they can't be conceived of. They can't have any. For example, paraconsistent logic has meaningful implications, right? You can use the system and it can give you results, right? That must mean that the syntax and the semantics of it are working in a way, right? If there was no binary, right, this couldn't really work. The consistency of the actual grammar and the syntax for something like a paraconsistent logic would depend on binary, right? And this is the important thing to remember, right? When you're questioning the foundations of epistemology, you don't do it from the position where something is false and then you're trying to demonstrate it to be true, or you don't know the truth value of something and then you're trying to find out whether it's true or false. The paradigm of epistemology, and this is why I answer in the terms of epistemology, because it's ultimately going to be recursive to that, it's because you're always engaging in retroactivity. Okay, you're always engaging in retroactivity. You know the reason you're always engaging in retroactivity? Because you already exist, right? The syntax of reality already exists such that it is sufficient enough to give you the ability to question it. So what you're doing is all the syntax is in front of you, all the information is in front of you, and you're just trying to retroactively make it to be the case that this is true within a worldview that can be logically conceptualized either through natural language or formal language. So the reason that the binary must necessarily be the case is because you can't conceive of a world wherein you couldn't possibly justify a world wherein it can't be the case, right? It's proof by contradiction. It's like, well, okay, if any world wherein logical monism or the existence of the binary doesn't exist, if any world wherein the logical binary is not justified or is not valid, or the logical monism doesn't exist, is not, you can't, it would be like self-defeating, right? It would be like saying, well, show me that the world would exist absent a mind without using your mind. Can't happen. It's not possible, because the means of justification already adds as a prerequisite that this is the case. How can we respond to the critics of CTME who claim that CTME cannot prove anything with certainty due to Gödel's incompleteness theorem? Well, I responded to this. There's this fundamental question of certainty and uncertainty in epistemology that we need to understand. Ultimately, it all comes back to epistemology, right? And so we have to answer Kizom's criterion problem. This is something that I became aware of through my debate with Jay Dyer and Agrippa's trilemma, and these two work hand in hand in identifying reality. Okay, and again, the Gödel's incompleteness theorem, it doesn't really say anything about uncertainty. It actually is just a matter of fact when used with a system like the CTMU that it produces certainty, right? When we have a metaformal system, like if the assumption and the axiom that is the fundamental truth that cannot be, can't be justified or something like this, right? Is exactly that kind of claim which produces the reality within which this claim can manifest, then the claim itself is valid. It's validated by reference to its implications, right? In the same way that an axiom, usually axioms cannot be justified by reference to their implications, right? Because their implications can only exist so far as the axiom is true. But we have this in the CTMU because again, it's recursive. It's self-justified. It's circular, and it's not wrong that it's circular. It's bad. I mean, it's not wrong that it's circular. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's a necessity, right? It's just that you have different kinds of circularities. How do we know which circularities are true? Well, we need to know which axiom, which foundation, which super tautology will bring about the world wherein this proposition can be interpreted to be true within the means by which the proposition can possibly be interpreted, which is the metaformal system. Yeah, so cannot prove anything with certainty. The CTMU critics who say, if it makes sense, how would you describe a CTMU valid reincarnation theory? Could it be some kind of single identity distributed over various incarnation experiences? Well, technically, that's what we all are. If you're thinking about the stratification of tellers or the standardization of the stratification of tellers, our role in it. We have the primary teller, the secondary teller, and tertiary tellers. Really, what are we? What is a secondary teller? What is a tertiary teller? Well, it's just self-identifications with the primary teller. Again, we talked about the idea that is fundamental to our metaphysic, and it's really an Aristotelian concept. It predates Chris Langen, that of potential, actualized and unactualized. We're just actualized manifestation. Different actualized manifestations within God, and we all carry his identity because we all carry his goal for self-identification, right? So in a valid reincarnation theory, in any really any theory that is derivative from the CTMU, and any conceptualization of reality that is derivative from the CTMU, ultimately it's always going to be a single identity distributed over various incarnation experiences, because that's what we are when we are incarnated, right? We are we are self-identifications of the existence of God, of God's identity in his experience. So yeah, it is a single identity distributed over various incarnation experiences. Correct. Yes. Unless I would be open to, this is the thing. I love especially talking to CTMUists because I can learn more and understand different conceptualizations of the same, important axioms and the same important principles that I know to be true. I just want to know and become more familiar with what possible implications they would have within, different implications of what they are. Are you familiar with the most renowned proof of God's existence in academia by Christian philosopher of religion Joshua Rasmussen and Alexander Pruss? No, man. The modal contingency argument by limits? No, I'm not familiar with that. I would have to look that up and tell you if the CTMU disputes its line of argumentation, because I'm not that familiar with that. If you could drop a summary of the argument in chat, I'd be glad to interact with it peripherally. Maybe I would be wrong, maybe I'd be right, but I don't really know what that is. This big jug of water. Jesus Christ. That's how you know you're poor. Yeah. I'm going to have to go in 48 minutes, by the way, because that's when my interview with Mr. John Zerzan, which, by the way, you guys should check out because it's going to be a fantastic interview. That's when it's going to start. And hopefully we're not going to have technical difficulties this time, because Jesus Christ, man. That was a painful 2 hours to sit through because there were some major technical difficulties. Yeah. The reason I'm kind of unfamiliar with it is because, you said in academia. I'm not, the means by which I get, my understanding of philosophy is simply not, it's usually through the books of the most pertinent philosophers, people like Arthur Schopenhauer, or, Immanuel Kant and Hegel and stuff like that, which Hegel I'm getting into more and more because of Treeman in my Discord channel. I'm sure you know him. He's a big Hegel guy. and I think there's a lot of merit to it. But insofar as the academic spectrum of philosophical work is concerned, I don't really concern myself with it that much because I just I think there's like stuff of more value peripherally. Maybe I'm wrong, but you can drop it in chat if you want, and I'll have a look at it. You don't believe that all knowledge has to be based on your senses. I don't think that all knowledge has to be based on your senses, but it's hard for me to conceptualize some kind of knowledge that isn't, right? Because maybe you're like somebody that doesn't have any central ability. That you're like basically somebody that is severely disabled, but you still have the capacity to function. Like I can conceptualize of experience because really that's what knowledge is awareness of reality, and you can conceptualize of reality, but you just don't have senses. Like you don't have sense data or qualia in the conventional type of human experience way, maybe. But no, I think it's possible. It's possible because tertiary telomers have a knowledge to a very limited and very hyper specified instantiation of what that would mean, right? So far as knowledge is considered to be awareness of reality in an extent, I think extrasensory awareness of reality. Well, again, like tertiary telomers, they don't necessarily have senses, but still in this in the primitive way, in the reductive way, and in the generic way was what Chris Langan would say. They have awareness, they have knowledge. So I don't. For human beings, I don't. For human beings, it would be hard for me to say yes. I would have to really think about that. I would really have to think about the fact of whether you could have knowledge beyond your senses as a human being. Because I can't even conceptualize that. We have like transcendental categories and things like Kant put together for a reason, is because these are the basic necessities for human thought and experience. Right? And so I don't think it's possible. These are categorical norms. We have hypothetical norms, which are like arbitrary preferences or modes of experience and stuff like that. But there are categorical norms, and it's hard for me to think of knowledge in the human sense without the categorical norms of the human domain of knowledge and experience being present. So I'm leaning towards saying for human beings, it usually pretty much always has to be based on your senses. But I'm open to it. I'm open to a potential argument against it. I think it's potentially feasible. I haven't thought about that much. Kant's categories are is that necessary for the CTM? Well, I mean, it implies this kind of like it's kind of vice versa. The CTMU is necessary, and these are kind of like implications of the CTMU. I think that the CTMU encapsulates Kant's, well, it encapsulates pretty much any potentially valid philosophical theorization within it. And so Kant's categories, are they valid? Are they logically cogent? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's what it is. Just to proliferate upon this a little bit more, deliberate. Jesus Christ, my mind's all over the place. I haven't slept. Just to deliberate this a little bit more, the CTMU is not accepting of Kant's noumenal and phenomenal distinction. I really don't agree with that. Well, the CTMU doesn't agree with it. I don't. The CTMU and myself, we don't agree with. My opinion is based on the CTMU. We don't agree with the phenomenal and noumenal distinction. I don't think that's a real thing that Kant put forward. I think it's completely logical and valid. Oh yes. Oh, I didn't see this, by the way. Chris Langan just responded to my comment to my video. To my post on the CTMU Facebook group. I really haven't seen it. I'm going to respond to some of your comments, and then I'm going to look at it and read it out loud because I really haven't seen it. Do you think that the CTMU could solve the problem of AI alignment to prevent AGI from undermining humanity? And that it would be, well, this would only be the case if we had, CTMUist people in power and they were genuinely good. And so Yeah, this is kind of why I'm having somebody like John Zerzan on, because I'm going to ask him about things like this. Um, he's a hyper anarcho-primitivist guy, and he's talking about the implications of technology and its harms. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask him questions about that in relation to something like the CTMU and the possible justifications for it. But like in a world wherein all of this stuff was operated under CTMU's control, well, then yeah, there would be no reason for anything to go wrong. We're talking about like a very hyper idealistic world. Binary logic is a dependency of yes, no, what something is to the wider. Yeah, true. Regarding extrasensory perception, I'm pretty sure Langan says there can be nudges from the non-terminal. Yeah. Again, yeah, this is true. Nudges from the non-terminal. This would be things like your psychedelic experiences or things like that. Really is just manifested also in the terms of they really manifest themselves in the human psyche insofar as the categories are concerned for the most part. You still have possible conceptions of time. They're not accurate with reference to the instantiated reality that is external to you, that is operated within by other tellers, right? But it still is kind of formulated and you know what I mean. It's formulated in the sense of your categories, in your existential categories, and the way that we perceive them. I'm going to read Chris Langen's comment for you guys. This is something that he posted in response to my post about my video that I posted. I post so many posts. The video that I posted yesterday, he commented on it, and I'm going to read it out. Hi. You've evidently been trying to explain the CTMU to trolls and dummies. When explaining the CTMU to such creatures, by the way, they're not nice people, and they certainly can't be called intelligent. Don't make admissions designed to placate them. Don't, for example, agree with them that empirical science has been successful in predicting and explaining everything, or in coming up with a tell. Yeah, I haven't agreed to that. It hasn't. In fact, it's been simply god-awful. I agree with you, Chris, with only a fraction of its alleged achievements being anything but dumb luck. Most of its theoreticians are complete failures. Yeah, I agree with you there as well. Take a good look at it. It can't explain how the universe began. The real nature of time and space are unfathomable mysteries to it. It can't explain dark energy. I agree with you there again. Despite its efforts to do so for decades now, it's been generating gobbledygook. It can't even explain how a moving object gets from one point to an adjacent point. It's a blowout. In contrast, the CTMU explains all of this and more. Exactly my point. That's literally the predication of this channel. Isn't that what I do, guys? Isn't that like literally what I do, is tell you guys, well, this is how all the stuff, all the stuff that is being talked about by people that are anti-CTMUists, or people that are like these hyper-empiricists, materialists, naturalists, they can possibly be interpreted, but only within the confines of the metaformal system of the CTMU. That's the only way that it can be interpreted. So I say this all the time, yeah. So me and Chris are in agreement here. I don't know exactly. He's saying that I'm assuming or conceding these things. I've never done that. If you see me in the comment sections, and this is kind of like a major criticism that people have of me, is that I'm very aggressive and provocative. And Chris caught me on like a very, in a very mild mood. I was very chill in that video. I was very, how do you say it? I was very chill. I was just very comfortable and, easygoing. I wasn't very provocative. That was the goal of the video, to just present the CTMU and not, consistently argue about, placate the burden of proof on anti-CTMUs, because that gets a little tiring and dull. Like, you guys want to hear like new information and actual stuff, right? Like, you don't want to see every single video that I make, or every single video that a CTMUs like me make is just, oh, this is what the anti-CTMUs are saying. It gets kind of boring, right? So that was the goal of the previous video. Stop assuming that they have the first clue. They don't. They're idiots. Agree with you there again. They're just looking for something that isn't science, but instead a perfect example of non-science, and on which they're in a position to pass judgment, when in reality they don't know their tailbones from their funny bones. The CTMU isn't what they seek. It's a logical extension of science, in which valid science is perfectly consistent. But they can't see this, because they want to be crank fighters, and they've made the stupid error of choosing the wrong person and the wrong theory as targets. The truth is that you'll never meet a CTMU critic / troll who can be trusted to change a light bulb. In fact, they're so blind that they can't even tell when the old bulb has been burned out. Now, let me finish watching this, and I'll see what other points you're making. Okay, so I guess he hasn't finished watching the video. And yeah, um, Chris, uh, I don't know if he's gonna see this or not. Obviously, I'm one of the biggest supporters and one of the most vocal supporters of your theory. If I really didn't believe that, and if I really didn't believe in its implications and how we ought to carry it about in the most ideal and most formidable representation, I wouldn't be in favor of it. I've made so many sacrifices to just keep this channel running in my personal life. It wouldn't make any sense for me to do anything otherwise. So it's not to be overly charitable to these people who don't deserve charity. That's why I argue so vehemently against them. So yeah, hopefully he finishes watching the video, or maybe he watches some of my other content. And I think he knows of me. We've interacted quite a bit. I think I think so. I've definitely interacted with Gina Langan a lot more um, to set up stuff. But yeah, I think he knows of me. I think he's watched my debate with somebody like Jay Dyer. I think he gave me some criticism and he gave me some pointers on that. And I've asked him a bunch of questions. We've had a bunch of correspondences, but I don't think he's ever responded to a non-debate video of me in particular. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I'm trying to be like yeah, you're right. Sometimes warnings about what to do and what not to do are not accusations, but from a caring perspective. Absolutely, you're right. And so yeah, I appreciate that. Of course. I mean, my goal is just this. I mean, you guys don't understand like how much it takes to try to argue for something that is so vehemently and so unfairly demonized, especially at the detriment of your personal life. Like I've had people in my personal life become cognizant of my YouTube channel and aware of my YouTube channel and stop associating with me and treat me a certain way. And I've lost friends over it and stuff like that. So my goal is ultimately to propagate the correct view of reality and the correct understanding of reality. That's always been my goal. That's always been the search under which I've manifested and instantiated this channel and everything that I've done within it. And so I would never go against something like that because like I truly believe that the CTMU is the way. And so that's my journey. Please next time take a look at this presentation of the conceptual shift in quantum mechanics, which proposes that micro-physical phenomena are cognitive in nature. Publications are accumulating. Yeah, there's this like very interesting stuff that I've always wanted to look into, with reference to how consciousness manifested like very micro-physical instantiations, or like in an empirical capacity, how we can determine or identify consciousness uh, in even these empirical ways, because our identification of consciousness usually boggles down to something that is much more metaphysical in nature. So I've always been interested in this stuff. I just really don't have the time to look into all of this. I promise you, if there was anybody that would want to be aware of all the stuff that you post in chat and tell me, well, have you taken a look at this, it would be me. Like if I had the ability, I would lock myself up in a cabin for the rest of my life and just read this stuff, because that's really what I'm interested in. That's what I love. But life's a bitch, man. Yes, the papers coming out of the edge cases are being able to foster some hope for physics. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I genuinely don't know. I'm not aware of that stuff, but yeah, Chris. If you see this, nothing but love. I'm sure if you see the majority, I've interacted with these trolls. Believe me, I've really interacted with these trolls, because I've had videos and debates with these people that have ranged over like thousands of views, and they're really nasty people, and they come at you in very harsh ways. And I respond very harshly in insofar as that level of reciprocity is not being met, like being a polite civil human being. So I'm always very harsh on them. But the last video, it was kind of like let me be completely honest with you guys, okay? Last video I shot on like an hour of sleep after abusing stimulants for 2 days on end. And so I was just kind of like dead. And I had already recorded an energetic episode of the Telex show beforehand, and I was kind of like fucking dead. So I was like, I'll just do I'll do a presentation about something a little more chill. I'll try to be like the nice guy. And so I just did one about the difference between discrete and continuum models within the framework of the CTMU. And a lot of people enjoyed it, apparently. So yeah, always appreciate the feedback from Chris. Love you, Chris. Love the CTMU. Love the foundation. Love everything you guys are doing. And yeah, I intend to be very, very tightly embedding the CTMU within everything that I do and propagating it in the most accurately representative way that I possibly can to, give it the recognition that it deserves. Those nudges are the revelations of self-awareness, syncing up with the wider mind of God. If you're talking about the awareness conversation that we had earlier, then yeah, I would agree with you. That seems to be the consensus in the community. That seems to be what Chris has said. They identify themselves within your psyche. Obviously, they have to appeal in the way that your psyche is structured, right? That's why, for example, when somebody does like psychedelics, right, they often talk of this experience of having an altered state of time, but there is still a conceptualization of a state of time. They talk about having this altered state of existence and feeling, and there's still that. There's still these predicate categories in which you experience. It's just that it gets stretched to its limits, and so that's something that I may even have to read a little bit more about to become more well versed in that, and be very certain about that. But I'm pretty certain. So, what's your email? I want to email you. Okay, my email is this. You can reach me here for any of you guys that want to email me videos and stuff or anything that you want to do and talk about, maybe debate me or something. Here's my email, and you guys can have that. Let me see if Chris has said anything else. It's crazy that I became aware of this through chat, and I didn't know that Chris had responded to me. Yeah, I may do like a more rigorous response to the comment and tell him where my intentions come from and stuff. So I think he's just coming from the position that like it's a waste of time, because it's become so redundant for him to engage with these trolls, and I really don't blame him, because just imagine me. I'm a niche like I'm a very niche content creator in a very, very niche space in support of a very niche thing. And I get that much fucking hate. Like, if you guys see my comment sections, or you see the comment sections in my debate with somebody like Jane Dyer, or you see my comment sections in my debates with other people, or just like me, my videos just regularly explaining stuff, I get that much shit. Now, imagine what somebody like Chris Langan gets, right? It's like I have complete I have a complete understanding of, well, I haven't been in his shoes. I haven't gone that much, but I understand exactly why he would be like, it's just pointless. And I agree. The reason I do, for example, debates with anti-CTMU is not to give them like charity. I think like, especially, I talked about this in the course on debate that I did, how to win debates, or like the structure and the goal and teleology of a debate. It's not to like bring them over to the CTMU. It's like, you're gone. Okay. But I am going to fucking make fun of you. I am going to destroy you in front of your audience, or, if you're like a streamer, or I am going to use you to milk you for content to, feed my CTMUists, feed my CTMUist content of like humiliating an idiot that has absolutely no fucking idea what they're talking about, but yet still criticizing something, or thinking they have the authority or the ability to criticize something that they haven't read anything about. Of course, I'm going to make fun of you. Of course, I'm going to take that opportunity to make fun of you and humiliate you, because why would I not? It's just easy content to further propagate the CTMU's message and show how these people that are acting in negation to the CTMU are just clueless idiots. Some guy talked about divine solipsism. Yeah, you're talking about meta reference point. By the way, I don't know what happened to I don't know what happened to him. Apparently, he like quit Discord. Wait, is it? I don't know if that's him. Wait, is that you? Wait, meta reference point, MRP. Is that you? Because you quit Discord or something, and I was very, I got kind of sad. Why would you delete Discord? I don't know. I don't really interact with people on email that much, so who knows? Okay. Yeah, send it my way. Send it to my email, man, and wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If meta reference point is here, I hope he's doing well, and yeah. I'm going to have to go in like 28 minutes or so. So I've only got like 28 minutes left in this whole charade. Honestly, I didn't think as many people would show up. I'm really happy with the engagements here. I think I might do these live segments more often, because apparently you guys are interactive. I think it would be good. I just need more time, really, because calculus is kind of beating my ass right now, and yeah, just school in general. So I have to keep on, uh, I have to update with that, keep in check, applying to universities. You know how the drill goes. Um, well, the good news is that when I'm in university, I'd be able to make more videos, definitely more debate content and stuff coming through. I'm probably gonna major in philosophy and mathematics, do a double major. Maybe if I get swindled one way or the other, I'll pick one just for an easier workload. Probably would lean towards philosophy, but yeah. Holy shit! It's been a crazy day. Crazy day, man. Yeah. Anything else? You guys want to throw my way? Any questions? Any stuff? Live stream once a week? Yeah, I think that could work. I think that could work. I think that would be. What Discord? Which Discord are you referring to? What do you mean? What do you mean, Chris? Are you talking about like our Discord, our the Omni Discord, the Omni Discord, the Discord of the Omni? I'm you know, I could be I don't have a lot of time right now. I could be passively posting videos that would again keep up the momentum and keep the ball rolling that I have in store. Like I have a lot of debates. I have debates that I've had with Meta Reference Point if he's here, not him, but like when he's been present in a Discord chat, and I've debated other guys about things referring to philosophy and determinism, stuff like that. I have a lot of stuff in the bank in the vault, and I could post those. One of them is the Veritas at Cerritos response, but again, again, I kind of feel bad. I really just do kind of feel bad because it feels like I'm picking on the disabled kid, right? Like I beat him so bad in the verbal, in the actual VC debate that he had to, he told me that he would call me back in a couple of hours to continue the debate, and he didn't call me back, and he didn't call me back at all. But he didn't text me or message me or respond to me until next week, telling me that he would only be able to respond through text. And it's like, all right, bro. And at that point, I was just kind of like, I'm going to stop working on this hit piece, bro. Not hit piece, but like video response to your hit piece. Because I was putting a lot of time and effort into it. And I was like, is it worth it if I destroyed you this bad in the debate? Is it like really worth it for me to, tire myself out like that when I already have life kicking my ass? And post like an hour and 30 minutes of thorough logical argumentation with syllogisms representing every single one of my responses, and do like actually my burden as an intellectual interlocutor when I have a position and when I'm debating with somebody as a public figure, and fulfill my obligations in that way, which by the way, this guy hasn't done at all. Completely clueless, complete idiot, misciting stuff all the time, misrepresenting stuff all the time. It's like, is it really worth it for me to do something like that? So, that's kind of, and I'm just kind of, I'm kind of lazy, honestly, I'm kind of just like a lazy piece of shit. So if I have motivation to not do something, if I have really good reason to not do something, I'm probably not going to do it. But one day, maybe one day when I'm doing like a barrage of content uploads, maybe I'll put it in there. Maybe I'll sync that across. Maybe I'll have that in the carriage. But yeah. And I'm going to go in like 20 minutes, so see if Chris has said anything. But yeah. Yeah, I'm going to check. Oh, fuck. I'm going to check the email. Let me answer Missing Nose question first. I have heard some people say that logic arises from non-dual awareness. How would you respond to that? Well, I don't really know what that means. I don't really know what that means. Like, I know what non-duality is, right? Maybe I don't have the most robust understanding of it, like as a fucking guru or psychic or some kind of person that's like in this niche would. But I have like a generic understanding of non-dualism. I don't know about how logic arises from non-dual awareness. Non-dual awareness. I guess you can think of God as kind of like a non-dual entity, and He's aware of everything that is within Him, right? So I guess you could say that, yeah, logic arises from non-dual awareness, and the non-dual awareness is equivalent to God's identity or something of that nature. I think you could possibly make an interpretable argument within the CTMU for that. I think you can make that. But again, it would just have to depend on the usage of the terms. All right, let's see what we got. Yeah. Yeah, for most of them, it's the cuckoo stuff. Okay, let's just be honest. It's the guru shit, the kind of, the stuff that we really like, the actual kooks. It's like, we all just one, man. We just feel stuff, man. It's like a lot of them are like these types, and it's like these types are really not types that you can trust well, for any level of philosophical sophistication. If you're trying to understand reality, because usually they're just not going to be able to get it. They're like more feel types, like, man, I took LSD, man, and then I was a god, man. I talked to God. It's like, bro, you did you did drugs, okay? You did fucking you did drugs, okay? I met God, man. I DMT, man. Shit, man. It's like, all right, bro. You talked to God. Listen, you kind of just did drugs, but okay. I guess we could say that you talked to God. Maybe you kind of. It seems like you kind of just did drugs, but yeah. So that's my opinion on that. Yeah, non-dual awareness arises from the duality of non-terminal to the terminal domains, from paralogical to logical processing. Non-dual awareness arises from the duality of non-terminal to the terminal domains. Non-dual awareness. I mean, again, it depends on what you mean by awareness. I don't exactly know at the non-dual level what that would mean, but maybe that's just my position of ignorance. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I won't be able to give you the best response to that. But again, it could be interpreted. It's like, it's not an invalid thought. There are some thoughts that are just like invalid in their structure, but this is not one of them. It doesn't seem to be the case from at least my peripheral understanding. So I think that it could have possibly merit. It could be possibly interpreted. You know, that isn't to dismiss their lower level experience interface. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, you can't dismiss that, because the means by which you have this non-dual experience is fundamentally going to be related to that which allows it to do that. Like for example, if you weren't instantiated within your lower level experience, like in your terminal domain, this is what we call the interface, right? If you weren't instantiated within your terminal domain body, would you really have the experience of having the non-dual awareness while within your terminal body? I don't think so. So yeah, of course you can't dismiss that. And yeah. I'm gonna close the live in like 9 minutes, so get your last stuff in, guys, because I'm gonna have to get prepared for the John Zerzan interview, which I'm going to publish pretty much right after I finish it. I'm going to edit it and then publish it. Been a workaholic lately, man. Been a workaholic. And let me know if you guys enjoy the Telex show, because I'm going to be talking about a lot of politics stuff and integrating the CTMU into my analysis of different political topics and different, not just political topics, but things that have to do with science and academia and shit like that. And, just peripheral, all the peripheral influences that you see. I keep using the word peripheral. All the inferences that you see within social media when you're scrolling peripherally. Yeah, like Nick Fuentes said this, Ben Shapiro did that. All these political commentators that have like some level of a niche relation to philosophy, like a tiny relation to philosophy. They kind of dip their toes in the water a little bit, and I try to talk about them and then introduce the CTME to that audience that is interested in that. And yeah, let me know if you guys enjoy that because I enjoy making it. It's easy for me to make, and that's like more CTMU content, more CTMU, slightly relevant content to the CTMU that I could post pretty regularly um, within my current circumstances. But yeah, yeah. Zach Smith, my guy, thank you for the kind words. You know, and also to reference point of views here, just wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Appreciate all the kind words, man. Really appreciate you. You're all day one. Day one. The day ones will not be forgotten. The day ones will not be switched up on. And and yeah, I plan on debating. There are a lot of these TikTok lives that you can easily have access to, and it could probably promulgate my um, my level of status within these communities at least. I'll probably try to debate Danny Philtalk again. I mean, he kind of ran from me the last time I tried to debate him. Also, I had an interaction with Ask Yourself. I had a correspondence with him talking about epistemic foundations. He believed in epistemic contextualism, and I was like, it doesn't really make much sense to me. So I might have a conversation with Ask Yourself as well, and we'll see how that goes. I really like Ask Yourself. I love Ask Yourself. I love his community. I love his style. It's kind of it's a little bit of an autistic style. It's hyper autistic, hypercritical, but I love it. I love it that way. And so even if I'm wrong, maybe, which I don't think I am, I think epistemic contextualism, from my understanding of it, I don't think it makes much sense, right? And so I told him that. But if I learn something new from the conversation, even if I, don't perform like I'm a god tier debater, I'll be happy with that. And I think a lot of people have like an overestimation of me in this community because, like, guys, I'm not a fucking expert on any of these things, right? I have like a decent level of knowledge about the CTMU, way more than the average person or even the average CTMUist. But like, I'm not an expert on mathematical logic. I'm not an expert on fucking physics or anything that has to do with science. I've never claimed to be that anyway. And I'm certainly not an expert on philosophy. I just believe in the CTMU, and I think I have reasonable justifications for the means by which I arrive at the conclusions that the CTMU arrives at. And I think the propositions within it have justifications, have real validity. And so that's really the way that you should be thinking about me. I'm fucking 18 years old, okay? As well as my suggestion. If you're, yeah. Well, for the first person that we're bringing on is John Zerzan. It's more of an interview, but I guess you could it would be the Telex show. That's how I would kind of advertise it. John Zerzan. I'm gonna try to get on Thomas Campbell. I'm gonna try to bring on Thomas Campbell. Have a back and forth with him. See how it goes. Try to really get an understanding in the same way that Kurt Jaimungal does his interviews. I really want to be acquainted a lot more with that kind of style and introduce that into my content, because I really love the kind of passive interrogation with this motivation of curiosity, because I am curious about these ideas. I really want to, apply that a lot more. So if I do an interview with, Thomas Campbell, and I will probably try to get an interview with Formscapes, which I think I could possibly get, I'll be employing that style, and then I'm going to be employing the style with John Zerzan tonight when we have a conversation. So yeah, somebody asked me about AI, or what was it exactly that I was asked about? Let me see. Let me go back. Yeah, and I think John Zerzan will have a lot of interesting stuff to say with relation to justifications for a primitivist lifestyle and the way that we can possibly answer, the dangers of technology, the dangers of AI. The CTME, we have this, in the community at least, we have this understanding of the singularity of the what was it called? There was a very specific name for it that I forgot. We have the tech singularity, of course, and we have it was divergence of some sort. I really forgot the phrase, man. Jesus. But we have these concepts, and I think somebody like a primitivist thinker, a primitivist philosopher who's very acquainted with epistemology and stuff like that will have a lot of informative stuff to add. And it will be very interesting to see what John has to say about maybe even the CTMU. I'm going to ask him about the CTMU as well. I'm going to ask him what he thinks about, non-dualism, dual aspect monism, what he thinks about monism, what he thinks about the universe as a self simulating thing, ethics and ethical objectivism, and moral realism, and how it applies to a possible justification of a primitivist lifestyle. And so yeah, he'll have a lot of interesting stuff to say. I mean, he literally did like a fucking he had multiple correspondences with Ted Kaczynski, so I'm sure he has a lot of interesting things to say, and he's published a lot of books. He's a Stanford educated a political, I think he has a degree in political science, master's in political science, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, he'll be the first really notable person that we've brought onto this channel. We don't include Jay Dyer because Jay Dyer is a fucking idiot, and I joined his channel, his live. So yeah, I don't really know how many Jay Dyerites were in my community. A lot of people really love Jay Dyer, which is like, come on, really? But yeah. Contextual processes of facts is where he will fail. I don't know what you mean by that. Mind independent facts? Yeah, sure. I think yeah, definitely. That's a good thing to ask. I will definitely ask him about that mind independent facts. And this is really the problem of epistemic contextualism. And the way that I understand it, epistemic contextualism is that there is a different designation of the standard for knowledge depending on the circumstance. But it really presumes, it's a presupposition of like whether there is a point at which it is adequate for something to have a different standard than the fundamental level. Because he says, for example, if somebody if you're having an interaction with somebody in your day-to-day life, and he asks you, well, what time is the meeting, right? Do you know what time the meeting is? It's like he's saying that the standard for knowledge here is going to be very different from the standard for knowledge upon which you predicate things like your metaphysical beliefs or propositions. Like, how do you know anything to be true? How do you know logic, or how do you know that you exist? He thinks that these standards, how do you know that these standards are real or valid? He essentially, the epistemic contextualist view would be like, these standards are different because the burden of proof, or the occasion and the context is different, and it warrants a different level of explanation. And I think that's very presumptuous. I don't know. I don't know that there is a justification by which he can designate exactly why at this standard we have to delineate or differentiate between our justification or standard for epistemology. And so I don't think he would be able to answer that, but maybe he would, and maybe he would be able to formalize it for me. And I think he would. I think he'd definitely be able to formalize it, and we'd get into that, and it would be very interesting. He's a very intelligent person. Isaac is a very intelligent person. I really respect him. And I'm really interested in what he has to say about the topic. So yeah, parasitic divergence, exactly. The parasitic divergence kind of runs in duality, or in conjunction. It operates in conjunction with the technological singularity, right? Insofar as these demagogues are ruling the means by which AI and artificial intelligence and the extensions thereof are distributed onto the populace, things like AI, things like this. And so within our interpretation of it, for example, somebody like Chris's interpretation of it, yeah, this would be very bad. This obviously, but the question would be, again, about whether there is any correct usage of it, wherein can this thing be manifested into society wherein it is used appropriately, or is that even, is there even such a thing as an appropriate use of this? Or is it always going to devolve and regress into, a parasitic divergence no matter what? So that's an interesting question. That's what I'm going to be asking somebody that is qualified to answer that, such as, John Zerzan, what he has to think about that. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to end the live, guys, because my interview is in about 9 minutes, and I have to go, fucking take a piss and get ready. But yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. Really love the interactions. Really love the activity here. And yeah, I'm going to be doing these maybe consistently, because apparently you guys like it. Apparently some of you tuned in and enjoy it. But yeah, stay in touch. Keep tuned in. Because I'm going to upload the video with John Zerzan very probably within this day. So stay tuned for that. Hope you guys all have a blessed day. Appreciate Chris Langan reaching out to me. And yeah, thank you guys, and Goodbye. You call us Jay Dyer. That's why Jay had to hold you to Platonism. Yeah, absolutely. Jay would have been safer sticking to apologetics concerning orthodoxy. Polemics against the CTM was purely an argument from ignorance. Yeah, exactly. I think he may have even admitted that he really didn't know. Take care. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Take care, guys, and yeah, see you around next time. Goodbye. Stay telic.